Hello everybody, it is me, Mr. Vince, and I hope you all have an amazing day today. And in this video, I am going to be comparing the Snowstorm texture and the Fire texture. Which one is better and which one is worse? In this video, I'm going to compare the two greatest newer season textures. Now before I continue on, I want to thank everyone for the amazing support recently. I do appreciate it, but without wasting more time, let's jump right into the video. So I'm going to be comparing them, and I will potentially give my honest opinion on each of them based on how they look, the difficulty on obtaining both the textures as well as a couple other things. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into So obviously the first texture I'm going to be comparing is the Snowstorm texture. So the Snowstorm texture was a texture that was added in Season 1 beginnings on December 20th, 2020. The Snowstorm texture is among my favorite textures in Jailbreak, and the reason why I like it a lot is because of the design. But most importantly, the color scheme looks really good on the vehicle, as it has a color scheme including blue and white. And honestly, I like blue a lot more than most of the other colors. That's just me. In Jailbreak, a lot of people like the color blue, so this texture is pretty good. With that being said though, there are a couple of downsides for this texture. But let's start with the good things about this texture. For one, the Snowstorm texture is pretty difficult to get, and that makes a lot of sense. This texture looks pretty good, and it is supposed to be challenging, so that might be a good thing for a lot of people. Another good thing about this texture is that it is actually very good in trading, although it is only for those with the Snowstorm texture. Otherwise, it may be a downside for you. Another good thing about the texture is that it has a very good color scheme. It has the colors blue and white, and a lot of Jailbreak players like the color blue, so this texture is very good to use. However, there are a couple of downsides. For example, this texture was pretty hard to get in Season 1 beginnings because players had to reach level 5 with the Season Pass in the season to get the Snowstorm texture. Also, the Snowstorm texture is pretty hard to get in trading, and this is for those without the Snowstorm texture, so it is pretty hard to get it. And also, because it is getting pretty close to winter, it will become more valuable because more people are willing to get winter-themed textures, notably the Snowstorm texture. Another huge downside with the Snowstorm texture is the brightness of it. It is a very bright texture because the color scheme used on the Snowstorm texture is very bright, including light blue and the color white. So it is not best that you use the chrome glow color on any of the vehicles you own, and as long as you are using the texture during the night, you should be perfectly fine. Using the texture during the day is fine too, but it is way too bright. So that is another problem with the Snowstorm texture. And it is not a bug, it is intentional because of the game's realism. But anyway, aside from the downsides, this texture is very nice and it is pretty rewarding. And it is currently the most viable seasonal texture in Jailbreak, even more than the field texture and its arch nemesis. Yeah, you might have guessed it. This texture is the arch nemesis of the Snowstorm texture. Both textures were, of course, added in Season 1 in the beginnings, and if you were a 2020 Jailbreak player, you probably have remembered. The fire texture was a very hard texture to get, and I think this was one of the hardest textures to ever get in Jailbreak's newer seasons. And despite this, the fire texture was not a season pass exclusive, so it was possible to get it without the season pass. Here are some good things about the fire texture. It is not as bright as the Snowstorm texture, which is a very good thing, and this texture is extremely usable during the day and night, so you can use it at any point in the game. You also don't have to worry about the basic color scheme, unlike the Snowstorm texture, so there are more colors that are part of the fire texture, and honestly that is pretty awesome. Alongside, the fire texture is pretty easy to get in trading, and it is for those without the fire texture, which is great. Alongside, the fire texture did not require the season pass in Season 1 of Beginnings, so this texture was possible to get without the season pass, like I said. However, there are a couple of problems. The fire texture was pretty hard to get in Season 1 Beginnings, despite the fact you did not need the Season Pass to get it. It was best that you buy the Season Pass during Season 1 Beginnings. Alongside, the fire texture is not that valuable in trading, and this is for those with the fire texture. The fire texture was glitched on the Torpedo before the July 2022 update, but afterwards, the Torpedo can now support the fire texture again. However, this might be a good thing for some people, but this was a pretty bad thing that occurred on the Torpedo. Before the July 2022 update, the Torpedo with the fire texture equipped would show a glitched version of the Snowstorm texture. So technically you could get the Snowstorm texture as long as you own the Torpedo and the fire texture. But like I said, it was fixed in the July 2022 update thanks to the fact that Asimo has went through nearly every vehicle and fixing up nearly every texture, so that's pretty awesome. Now, even though the texture was hard to get, it was rewarding and it was super awesome. Even though the texture is not as valuable as the Snowstorm texture, which might change because people randomly change values in trading, the Snowstorm texture and the fire texture are both fantastic, and I generally enjoy using both of them. Honestly, this texture looks really nice, the color scheme is fantastic, although the Snowstorm texture does look fantastic as well. Alongside, the Snowstorm texture is pretty valuable and requires the season pass, unlike the fire texture where it is not as valuable and does not require the season pass.
Bruh.
Players had to reach level 8 in Season 1 of Beginnings to get the fire texture, whereas players had to reach level 5 in Season 1 of Beginnings with the season pass to get the Snowstorm texture. And thankfully, because of the July 2022 update, the Torpedo can now use the fire texture once and for all, after nearly 2 years of the fire texture's release. So, which one is better? Well, honestly, I don't really know. Both of these textures are great in their own ways, but honestly, both textures are great, and you do not need to choose which is better. Honestly, I would go for the Snowstorm texture for the color scheme, but if you think about it, the fire texture is also fantastic, and it looks even better on the Torpedo. So yeah, what did you guys think? Did you think the fire texture is better than the Snowstorm texture, or vice versa, or both? Please feel free to let me know down in the comments. I would surely love to read your comments as usual. But anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. If you have enjoyed, please feel free to leave a like. Please feel free to subscribe as well. And please feel free to let me know down in the comments what you guys think. But anyway, I will go ahead and end the video right there. And oh my goodness, I'm being beaten by this guy, so that's not good. But as always, my name is Mr. Vince. Hope you all have an amazing day today. And I'll see you guys in the next video.